next lady is somebody who I came to admire through social media. And as I got to know her, I was like, you really understand what it's like to be powerful and just own it. And so we're here today to talk about owning and amplifying your power and how women can become more powerful if we collaborate on being powerful together. Now, when we say powerful, we mean power in a certain way. And Gina's going to talk to you about that. But the reason we talk about this topic is because it's quite a polarizing topic. If you look at the definition in the dictionary, it's actually got quite a good definition, but it seems to be polarizing amongst women. And so joining me today, I have Gina, who's a woman who isn't afraid to use her own power for herself and others. And these past 6 months, she's been a rock for me. And she's actually helping men and women around the world through her best-selling book, sold out multiple times, More Than. Now, Gina is more than a co-founder of her own company and more than an award-winning CEO. Her accolades are a long, long list. She's an influencer, author, international trade advisor, mum, wife, friend, Southern Badass Belle, and more. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This has been phenomenal. I have enjoyed listening to the panelists, to the speakers so much. The only problem is I keep trying to take notes and tweet all the amazing things that they're saying and then get other stuff done. And so I'm really excited to see that it's being recorded, and because it has just been absolutely phenomenal.
Gina. So opening question, Gina.
Yes.
What does power mean to you?
The way I define power in my book is, the way I define humility in my book is power under control. And so power to me is really the ability to affect change in your own life, to affect change in others' lives. The power is to influence others to make a change. And so that's how I define power.
So it's more around, power with rather than power over is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a little while ago, I actually did a podcast on women and power. And it was really interesting. The woman I was interviewing had surveyed some women on, what they think of when they think about women and power. And the results that came back were actually quite astonishing. And one that particularly sticks out in my mind is, being poked in the eye with a stiletto on the way up. So, what are your thoughts on women and power versus men and power? Why have some of those myths come about? Why do they exist?
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons, especially in male-dominated worlds, is there's so few of us. And so people think that you have to get up and you have to poke someone in your eye with your stiletto as you're climbing the ladder, that you have to be that way. You have to be tougher than the guys. You have to come in and make yourself known. And so I think that we have gotten sort of a bit of a bad rap on that. And women in general have taken that on themselves. So I think that women versus men, power is power. You can have power because of your position. You can have power because of your title. But if a man walks into a room and he's well-dressed and he just looks like he comes in and he's a powerful man, a woman can do the same thing. The difference is how we're seen. The other day I did a leadership podcast and a guy asked me, he said, well, can you talk to the women about how to be leaders without having a chip on their shoulder? And I was so flabbergasted. I immediately went in to talk to him about, being unaware of things and unconscious bias and male allies. And he was like, yeah, but how do women become powerful and leaders without a chip on their shoulder? And I'm like, okay, buddy, you're not getting this. You're not getting the answer here. So society perceives powerful men as they get the job done and they're aggressive. However, we all know that powerful women are perceived as bitchy and, bossy and all the things that we don't want to be seen. I know you and I have talked about the fact that women are socialized to be nice and to be more about we than about me. But as young people, men are socialized to be, the winner, the competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think the key thing is that, let's stop buying into these myths. Let's stop buying into these stereotypes. We don't actually need that. And I just want to pick up on something that you said about having a chip on your shoulder. as far as I'm concerned, as long as you use it wisely, there's nothing wrong with having a chip on your shoulder. I mean, having a chip on your shoulder means that you see something and you provoke to take action.
Yeah.
So,
I
I think it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder. It's just how you use it that matters.
Exactly. I always tell people, I said, listen, I will not apologize for my passion on this subject. I will apologize that you've got 5 minutes to hear it. So here it comes. And
I love it. I love it.
And no apologies for that whatsoever, because I've never had a man walk into a boardroom or the manufacturing floor and apologize to me for being aggressive and passionate about something. So I'm not going to make apologies for it either.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. So when did you first realize that you had power?
You know, it's funny. I first realized I had power, which I consider influence over others. I was in the 10th grade. I was having lunch, and this girl walks by. I'm sitting at a table with about 8 girls, and a girl walked by, and I said, "Oh, do you see her new haircut?" It was a very different haircut. And someone said, "Oh my gosh, yes, I can't, it's ugly or whatever." And I said, "I really like it." And then all the other girls were like, "Oh, me too. It's really nice." And I thought, two things. I thought, one, I don't want to be them. But the second thing I thought, for the first time, I kind of realized, like, I have the power to influence the people around me. And that was honestly the first time I ever realized that I had the power to influence others. What about you, Fiona? I'm so interested to hear about yours, especially growing up in a
Well, mine came early too. Mine was in high school. We had a gym class one day, and in England, you have a school uniform. And so when the girls do gym class, they actually have to wear what you call a PE skirt, a physical education skirt. And I was like, it's the middle of winter, and I have to wear a skirt to go outside and do gym class, and the guys get to wear pants. I don't think so. And so everyone was like, yeah, I agree, Fiona. And so I'm like, let's do a strike. And in the end, I was the only one sat in the changing rooms by myself, because as soon as the teacher came in, everybody else ran out. But I realized that I had the power not to just accept what is in front of me. And I had the power to, have my own mind. And yeah, that would sometimes come with consequences. But actually, sometimes we got to challenge the system, because that's how things change.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story.
And
a walkout in class, and then
Yep.
Back to class and went to stay with the principal because he knew it was my fault that I was in charge. But hey.
Yep. Sometimes you got to take one for the team.
Yeah.
So how have others responded to your power, and how have you dealt with some of the naysayers? Because one of the things that my coach said to me is, Fiona, there's no doubt about it. You've got a lot of presence, and you're a powerful woman. And some people aren't going to be okay with that. Get used to it. So, how have you dealt with it, and what tips do you have for our audience?
It's interesting, and it really is different between men and women, I have noticed, in different types of people, different personalities. I have had women that were in a position, matter of fact, I'm going to tell a quick story. I had a woman that was in a position, and she worked with economic development within my state. We were on this big trade mission. I'm there representing my company. And then all of a sudden she decides that for what, I don't know, just because I go in and take charge, I suppose. And she kind of came in and was like, "I don't want you here." And I mean, it got really ugly between the two of us. And I remember saying to her, I said, one of the things, and this was before it got ugly, one of the things I love about your predecessor was she ran it. She was a woman in a man's world, but she never felt the need to put down other women or to come in and, show her presence. Her presence was just known by her ability to lead others. And she said, "Yeah, but you must understand that sometimes we just have to buck up and be a bitch." And I was like, well, we can do that. Of course, in my book, I define bitch as beautiful, intelligent, talented, creative, and hardworking. And I was like, we can't do that, but we're going to get more done if we work together. So it actually kind of got ugly. I always tell everybody it was as professional as it could be without being, like I'm taking off my earrings and we're going to have a throwdown right in the middle of this trade show. But she really had a problem with the fact that I was another powerful woman in the room with her. And I'm like, listen, we can run this together. Let's do this together. And then with men, sometimes, a lot of the times with them, I get dismissed. They just sort of assume, I'm the token. Again, talk about this in my book. I'm the token female. And so they'll come in and,
not the silent token.
Oh, no, not the, listen, I don't have a problem being the token, so you can see someone that looks like you, but I'm not going to be the silent token. That's exactly right. And so a lot of times with them, I'll just kind of let So I have a saying in my book, and it's GMB, which is Google me, buddy. And so one time I had a guy, I was running a board meeting for, and he was talking about runway lengths, and they were going to produce 18-year-old commercial pilots. And I was like, I don't really think that's how this works. So I began to ask him questions, and I said, what is your runway length? What is your, capacity? All these questions. And he says, I don't know if anyone in this room can understand my vocabulary, but, and then he went on, and it was funny because the guy sitting next to me knows me very well, and he was like, oh no. And I just looked and I said, listen, if you don't know if I have the expertise to speak on this matter, you can Google me. And then I just went right on. And so a lot of times I have to let my, my LinkedIn or my Google results show where I have, power to speak on a subject. And so it's funny, I would love to go into it longer, but I want to hear what you have to say too. But there's actually like a whole chapter in my book on tips on how women can deal with this when working with men and even other women.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Your side.
Yeah. Say 1 minute, Gina. We had a little thing on the internet. Can everybody still hear us and see us? Please type in the check box. It's all being recorded on our end, so we're good. Okay, awesome. Gina, Google me, buddy. I love that.
Well, the bee can go either way. It depends on who you're talking to and your emotional attachment to the word bitch. So either way.
Yeah. Anyway, so for me, I guess, like when it comes to my power, I often find that with other strong women, like initially there's some resistance, and I even feel the resistance. I mean, unfortunately, the way we're socialized, everybody's probably got a little bit of inner mean girl, but it's what we do with that. And so, as I got on with my career, what I began to realize is that when I felt that trigger, it meant that woman was likely to become my best friend. And there's a phrase that I love. It's called "You spot it, you got it." And so whenever I meet a woman and I feel like that, I'm like, all right, let's be open here. And the other key learning point for me in managing my power was when I really sat down and started to accept that not everyone's going to be comfortable with my power. Not people are going to react to it, and sometimes there is a lesson for me. Yeah, I do maybe need to express myself differently, but 9 times out of 10, it's more about their insecurity to be with my power. And so I got to stop beating myself up and start accepting who I am, because I spent a long time being like, I've got to be nicer, I've got to be the sweet girl, and no one likes me because I have a strong personality. And really learning to love myself and just own that it's coming from a good place. That was a great lesson for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that feeling.
Yeah. So how have you used your power to support other women?
So I have a very particular way that I do it. One, I love to connect to people. I love to network. And I actually heard you say that earlier. You were like, I'm going to connect this person with this person. Love that, because I believe that if you build your network, you build your net worth. So we always want to build. But there's just an example. There's a list in my home state, and it's called the 250 list. And supposedly what it is, not supposedly, it is, I'm just going to own my power. It's a list of the 250 most powerful people in the state. And I've been on that list for 3 years now. And this last time, every time I look at it, there's a few females, there's a few people of color. And so this year I said, let me send them a list. And I have a list that it's women and people of color, and that's it. And so I send it to them and say, these are people who are powerful in their industry, who are making a difference within our state. And so now, like we talked about being the token female, speaking on a lot of manufacturing subjects or just different places, leadership, if I can't speak or have done it before, I say, here's a list. And I will send a list of women, and they are a list of women who are my friends in multiple different industries and who are experts in those industries. Because if someone's going to look at me and say, you have influence and you have power, then I also have the ability to say, then let me help these people. Let me introduce you to these people, because you don't know it yet, but they have power as well.
Yeah.
So I see you're doing this, and this is an amazing way to use your power. But what examples do you have for us?
Well, for me, there's a couple of ways. Quite early on, when I was at Rolls-Royce, that was where I discovered my passion for women's issues. I ended up on the board for Rolls-Royce Women. And I remember some women coming to me and saying, well, I'm just an assistant, or I'm just this, and I'm just that. And hearing the word just broke my heart. I'm like, you're not just anything. Even like people that say, oh, I'm just a housewife. You're not just a housewife. You're the project manager of your own home. You're like a financial analyst. There's so many things you have to do in running a home. And I don't want to hear another woman using the word just. And so I really like to, I say that I see potential over people, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. But I think it's really, really important that, we turn around to other women and say, stop using the word just, and this is what I see. And we keep telling each other, this is what I see, this is what I see, this is what I see, until we start believing it ourselves.
Love that.
And then, and then the other way I help women is I like to be a voice for others. Not everybody. I've got some fortunate circumstances in my life. I've got a supportive husband, and so I can actually use my voice where perhaps some other people can't. So when I do see things that are unjust and unfair and need to be addressed, I'll speak out for other people. And I think we need more of that. I really do.
Yes. That's so. Two things, if I may pick up with you. My title of my book, actually, people have called me a business bitch for years. I mean, I've heard that, and so the reason it's like I'm more than a business bitch. I'm not just a business owner. I'm not just a mom. I'm not. I'm more than. I'm all of these things. Of course, then the publisher decided that maybe we shouldn't throw bitch in the title on the first book. So the next one, hold on to your seats. You never know what it's going to be titled. But, it's true, because we hear that just all the time. And that's not what we need. And we need to be lifting other people up. And, when I look at this list in my state about, the 250, I also think I see a lot of white men in there. And I want everybody to know, I don't have anything against white men. I love white men. My daddy was a white man. I don't love them enough to marry one, but I have, my husband's not white. But there's nothing wrong with them. They're part of the diversity too. They just need to see that there are other people out there. And so if I have the opportunity, then that's how I'm going to empower other women and use my power for good, is to be that bridge that introduces one side to the other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's trying to explain to people that just because we're champion for diversity, it doesn't mean that you don't have a place anymore. And right. Men benefit as well as women, as workplaces become more diverse. And it's not about let's get rid of all the men. It's about let's have gender balance, let's have gender wise, let's both bring our skills and our talents and be better together. And some of my best relationships have actually been with other men where we've supported one another. And so anyway, Gina, I could talk to you all day long, and unfortunately we're beginning to run out of time. So I want to ask one more question, and then just so everybody knows, Gina has very kindly agreed to stay on with me when we move to the Zoom lunch after this, when we're going to do the chat between 12 and 1 PST. But Gina, before we dial off, what is a tip that you've got for how women can collaborate to own it?
I think that lifting other women up, finding your tribe, and I think things like this are amazing. I mean, this is where you can find your tribe. I found my tribe. I once had a good friend who I'd known since college give me some advice, and honestly, it kind of hurt my feelings at first. She said, you need to start hanging out with richer people than us. And I remember being like, why? That's like a horrible thing. I'm my best friend, I don't understand. And she's like, you need to, move up with, kind of level up with who you're hanging out with. And I just remember being like, I don't even understand this. But the truth was, she felt like I needed to be around other women who could support me in the business world. And she was right. And so I joined some leadership courses or classes that like my state chamber did, local chambers will do those, and found an amazing group of women who were on the same trajectory as I was and were supportive and had dealt with the same issues that I deal with. And matter of fact, in my book, I use a lot of their stories. And I talk about, guys have the good old boy network, and we need the good old girl network.
We do need the good old girl network. Absolutely.
I had one guy, and they thought they were being, they were being intentionally inclusive, which I love. I don't have an issue with that. The guy came and said, I want you to be a part of this. He gave me a big slideshow, and he said, do you see an issue with this slideshow? And I said, well, you're all white men. He said, yeah, we're all white men over 40 with goatees. And he said, we need some women. We need some diversity. And I said, great. I said, I'm going to Google you, though. Let me do this really quick. I Google him. I find out that there's one guy on there that essentially had been sexually harassing and demeaning women throughout his career. I bring it to the attention of the group, and the guys say, well, we are aware of this and we're going to hold him accountable. I was like, no, that's not how this works. You don't hold someone accountable. This isn't, forgive me from where my background in Southern Baptist, this isn't church. You don't keep the pastor doing something wrong in this position and hold him accountable. No, he's got to go. Like, this is not okay. So I ended up writing an email to the entire board that they were asking me to be on and said, I will not be associated with this because of this man. Now, it was 100% facts that I had been given. I don't know this man from Adam, but I was determined that I was in that position to say, this has happened and we're not going to do this. And so, it did. At that time, I just stepped away. Turns out a year later, something happened and now he's gone, But I was so shocked at how many women I talked to who had been through this and who said, I never told anybody till after he left, or, please don't use my name, all of these things. And I just remember thinking, this is how I can collaborate with these women to start building that power. And so I say it's time for that. We form a good old girl network.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of truth in what you say. There's a lot more women out there that have experienced it than some people realize. And only by talking about it can we actually create some change. Exactly. So good old girl network. And please stay on till the end, because if you stay on to the end, we're going to talk more about how we're going to create that good old girl network. And we're going to have some more copies of Gina's book, More Than, to give away, plus some jewelry. So, my last piece of advice, Gina, is really, how can women collaborate to own it? I say, amplify others, amplify them.
Yes.
You see something on LinkedIn and, share it, post it. You hear about a woman doing something successful, and, you'll see that, you can go around and tell people about it. Sorry, I'm being distracted. All of the chat is showing up on my screen. And I just want people to remember as well, in terms of women at work, not all harassment is sexual. It comes in different forms. Right. And we don't just need to look out for other women. We need to look out for people of color and even guys, because guys can get harassed too. And so, if you see it, say something.
That's right. That's right. And you talked about social media. That is the fastest and freest way to support someone else. That's how you and I got to know each other. Obviously I had known you from previous aerospace events, but sharing and liking their post and commenting on their post, and that is, I always say, the easiest and cheapest way to support others. So why not do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, any parting words, Gina?
Listen, I tell guys, we're not trying to take your seat at the table. We just want you to scoot over a little. And so, we'll even bring our own chair, just scooch, So, no, I think my parting words are, I really appreciate this. And I hope that women leave with good tips, good actual tips on how to make some change in their life and how to move forward and how to empower and encourage others.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Gina. And I just, want to let you all know just how much Gina walks the talk. She knew this was my first event today. Gina is actually a highly paid motivational speaker and a brilliant one at that. And she donated her time for us. She donated it. So get online, buy her book. Buy her book, because this woman is phenomenal. And I tell you now, there is so much information in that book. It's like having a mentor for several years. And I love the book. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I feel quite emotional now.